We're going to go over all four operations and how you solve a one-step equation. At any point, if you need to stop and pause to write what I'm writing, please do. The first problem we see is W minus 14. So in order to solve that, we need to do the opposite of minus 14. So we're going to drop our wall. We're going to add 14 on both sides of the equation. And that's our first step. And since it's a one-step equation, this will produce our solution. So these cancel each other out, leaving our variable W. And on the other side, I add 23 plus 14 to get 37. And that's the answer. The next equation reads M plus 4 equals 35. So we're going to drop down our wall. What the problem is doing is adding 4, so we're going to do the opposite, which is subtracting 4 on both sides. Again, it's just one step. So this cancels each other out. These two, the opposite or inverse operations, cancel, leaving our variable. And on the other side, we have M equals 31. Following problem, x minus 9 equals negative 13. In order to undo minus, we're going to add 9 on both sides. Cancel each other out. In fact, what happens is it zeroes out. It becomes a 0. X plus 0 would be x. And on this side, negative 13 plus 9 would give us negative 4. Problem number 4, v plus 15, the opposite of adding 15 is to subtract 15. We do this on both sides. Whoops. So these become 0 or cancel each other out, leaving v equals. Now sometimes this is tricky. If we're starting at negative 27 and we're moving further down the number line with negative 15, you can kind of think of this like we're adding two negatives. So that would give us negative 42. Sometimes this next type of problem is confusing to students. I'd like to solve it as is, and I'm going to show you what you could do if you don't like to see it this way. I'm going to go ahead and drop the wall. This time, I'm going to look at the right side of the equation. That's where my variable is. I always start on the side that my variable is located on. And it's n plus 18, so we're going to do the opposite of adding 18. We're going to subtract 18 on both sides. You're going to notice that 6 is smaller than 18, so when I subtract 18, I'm going to move into the negative numbers, and so the solution is negative 12 equals n. So many students are very uncomfortable with this type of problem, and so another way to do this type of problem would be to rewrite it. So I'm going to move everything that's on the right side onto the left side in exactly the order that it's given, n plus 18. Then equal, and I'm going to switch the 6 over to the other side. So what we're doing is we're just reversing the order. We solve it exactly the same by subtracting 18 on both sides, and we would still get n equals negative 12. This next type of problem, this is uncomfortable because we don't see an operation sign, but side by side means that we're multiplying. So in order to undo multiplication, we use division. But again, this looks different now because we're using this little fraction bar to mean division. So that's our new way of writing division. The number we want to undo is 8. Excuse me, so we're going to divide both sides by 8. On this side, these two, 8 divided by 8 is 1, and 1x is just x. That's how we isolate that variable. And on this side, you're going to notice that there's a negative 96 and a positive 8. So my answer is going to be negative. And 96 divided by 8 would be negative 12. Problem number 7. is again multiplication. When we look at side by side, it means multiply. So we're going to drop down our wall. To undo multiplication, the opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to use a division bar on both sides, but this time I want -4 to go away. So I'm going to use that -4. And that's because a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and I want a positive x, not a negative x left over. These again become 1, and 1 times x is x. I must do the same thing on both sides. So if I look at this, I have a positive 36 and a -4. So again, Margar's mad, so we're going to get a -9. All right, number 8 and number 9 are very similar. When we see what looks like a fraction, this actually means v divided by 8. So the opposite of division is multiplication, and the number we want to get rid of, so to speak, is 8. So we're going to multiply by 8 on both sides. We can show multiplication as parentheses or a dot or a time sign. We try to stay away from the time sign because it's looks like a variable. So these two become 1. 1v is v, and 2 times 8 is 16. If we wanted to check this type of problem, the original equation was v divided by 8 equals 2. So I'm going to replace that v with my new solution, which I think is 16. So 16 divided by 8, and sure enough, that is 2. That's what you do to check it if you're not sure of your answer. So this is solving here. This is checking. And I use my checks when I'm uncomfortable with what my answer might be. Finally, if I look at this one, again, it's written backwards. We're going to go ahead and solve it as is, but then we'll talk about what else you could do. I look on the side where my variable is. That's always where I start, and this time it's on the right side, and I see k divided by 11. So I'm going to multiply by 11, but I have to do the same thing on both sides. So I'm multiplying by 11 on both sides. On the right side, they cancel each other out, leaving my variable k, and on the left side, 11 times 6 is 66. Once again, if you do not like the way this is written, it's uncomfortable, one of our options is to go ahead and rewrite it. So what I would do is I would move everything I see on the right over to the left in exactly the order that it was given, and then the number that was on the right, the left moves to the right. So I'm just switching the order. However, we're going to solve this exactly the same way. So k divided by 11, the opposite of dividing by 11 is to multiply by 11. And I do that on both sides. So if it's more comfortable for you to do it this way, you're welcome to switch order of the problem. Just make sure you keep everything in order that it's given. Meaning on the right side, if it's written this way, keep it written this way when you switch it.